Goes, mirror, mirror on the wall, should not great pleasure be thy all? For if I shall see thy will be done, grant me the witchcraft of thy tongue. How's it going? How's it going, you ghouls and bastards? My beautiful ghouls and bastards, I should say. Handsome. Demir. I don't know what this is. It says in this video, it says one recording exposed what they were hiding all along. And it's a Instagram description of a post. But because it's edited here, it says it has 98,858 likes. I think it's slightly altered. But I might be able to find this. See the OG post, maybe. Could be a real thing, you know. I don't know what this is though. It's by someone with 12 subscribers.
Oh, you beautiful, dangerous keeper of secrets. Welcome back. Or should I say,
I don't know.
welcome.
I don't know if these voices are AI, but it sounds like the exact same voice of somebody who had entered my plane. Someone that spoke to me just the other day. Dude, I made a reel, and in the description was a YouTube video. And the reel got 1,000 views on Facebook and no interactions. All of the posts that I made on TikTok didn't even come close to that many views. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how is it that something that you could post on a social media platform gets so many views and zero interactions? When I post something on YouTube, it gets less traction, more interactions. And that's YouTube, man. And then I already know the answer. It's because they peel stuff off of social media, especially Meta, right? It's an API thing. So basically, you get scraped, right? They scrape your content. I already knew about this, right? The other day I made a post. Every single one of my followers saw it. It was only for my friends though. So all my followers were my friends. And then there's extra. And then after the extra, after the extra came, I got a fucking DM. I got a DM. The post was, I have a video. It's about an hour and 19 minutes long. I don't know what to do with it. Does any one of my friends want to watch it? And yeah, within 2 hours, I was direct messaged by somebody that started to point the finger around the fucking table of debauchery, start blaming other people for their shitty behavior. And yeah, I had an hour and 19 minutes. Yeah, I've got a lot more than that actually. It's kind of funny, an hour and 19 minutes. So that person exposed a bunch of snakes. Yeah, anyways. So I'm gonna play some games because I like to play games and I like to chill out and I like to relax.
Welcome to the exact
Come.
moment everything changed forever.
Come.
Because something happened.
Welcome.
Didn't it? Something they don't know about yet. Something that's sitting in your files right now, making your phone feel heavier than it should. They thought the camera was off. They thought the microphone was dead. They thought they were safe to drop the mask.
Come, boy.
To say what they really think. To reveal who they actually are when nobody's watching. But somebody was watching. You were. And now you're sitting there with the kind of evidence that could rewrite their entire reality. The kind of recording that would make them drop to their knees and beg. The kind of proof that's worth more than any amount of money they could offer you to delete it. Let me ask you something, and answer honestly, because we both know the truth. When you realized it was recording, when you saw that little red dot still glowing, when you heard their voice coming through crystal clear, saying things they swore they'd never said, what did you feel first? Was it shock? Was it validation? Or was it that cold, quiet power that comes from finally holding the truth in your hands after months or years of being called crazy, dramatic, too sensitive, a liar? Because here's what they don't understand yet. Here's what's keeping them up at night, even though they don't know why. Yeah, their subconscious whispering warnings their ego refuses to hear. You're not the same person anymore. You're not the one who used to scramble for proof, who used to doubt your own memory, who used to think maybe, just maybe, you imagined it all. No, no, no. Now you're the one with the cards. Now you're the one with the leverage. Now you're the one they should have been nice to, should have told the truth to, should have respected when they had the chance. And the recording sitting in your possession right now, it's not just evidence anymore. It's a nuclear option. It's a life sentence they don't know they're serving yet. It's the end of their carefully constructed narrative and the beginning of your vindication. They're walking around right now thinking they got away with it, thinking their secrets are safe, thinking they controlled the story successfully. Meanwhile, you're holding the unedited director's cut of their downfall. And every time your phone buzzes, every time you scroll past their name, every time you see them performing their fake personality for the world, you know something they don't. You know the recording exists. You know what they said. You know who they really are. And that knowledge, that beautiful, terrifying knowledge, it's changed you in ways they'll never understand until it's too late. You move differently now, don't you? You talk differently. You smiled. Because you're not arguing anymore. You're not explaining anymore. You're not defending your truth anymore. You're just waiting, watching, holding the grenade with the pin already pulled, deciding when and if you'll ever let it drop. They wanted to make you look insane. You've got the footage of them admitting their manipulation. They wanted to convince everyone you were lying. You've got the audio of them confessing the truth. They wanted to destroy your reputation. You've got the evidence that would obliterate theirs into dust so fine it would take archaeologists centuries to find the pieces. Do you understand the position you're in right now? Do you comprehend the sheer magnitude of power sitting in your camera roll, disguised as a regular video file? This isn't just about revenge, though, let's be honest, that thought has crossed your mind approximately 7,000 times since you realized what you had. This is about justice. This is about truth. This is about the moment when reality stops being negotiable and starts being undeniable. Because see, they built their entire existence on controlling the narrative, on making sure their version of events was the only version anyone ever heard, on silencing you through gaslighting, intimidation, social pressure, making you question your own sanity. But recordings don't gaslight. Video doesn't manipulate. Audio doesn't lie. And now you're holding the one thing they can't talk their way out of, can't charm their way past, can't manipulate into submission. You're holding the truth. And the truth, my friend, the truth is absolutely terrifying to people who've been lying for so long they forgot what reality looks like. So right now, in this exact moment, you're standing at a crossroads that most people never reach. The intersection of justice and mercy, of truth and consequence, of your pain and their panic. and they don't even know the crossroads exists yet. They don't know you're deciding their fate while they're out there living their lives, posting their fake smiles, spreading their false narratives, sleeping peacefully in beds they made from lies. But soon, oh soon they'll know. Soon they'll feel that shift in the air, that change in your energy, that quiet confidence that comes from someone who doesn't need to argue anymore, because they have proof. Soon they'll realize something's different about you. Soon they'll start to panic. And when they do, when that fear finally creeps into their chest and they start asking themselves, what does this person know? What do they have? What if there's proof? That's when the begging begins. That's when the phone calls start. That's when the messages flood in. That's when they'll offer you anything, everything, just to make that recording disappear, just to make you delete what you know, just to go back to the time when their lies were safe. But here's the thing they still haven't figured out, the thing that's going to haunt them for the rest of their existence. You don't need their money. You don't need their apologies. You don't need their promises or their tears or their desperate attempts to rewrite history one more time. Because you already have something more valuable than anything they could ever offer. You have the truth. And the truth, once captured, once recorded, once saved in multiple locations because you're not stupid enough to keep only one copy. The truth is priceless. The truth is power. The truth is the weapon they handed you the moment they thought nobody was watching. So welcome to the aftermath, welcome to the reckoning, welcome to the moment when everything they thought they controlled starts slipping through their fingers like sand. The camera was on, the microphone was live, and you were ready. Let's talk about what happened to you the moment you realized what you had. Not physically, we'll get to the panic they're about to experience in a minute, but what happened inside you, in that space between your thoughts where truth lives before language tries to capture it. You replayed it, didn't you, that recording? You watched it again and again and again, not because you didn't believe it the first time, but because you needed to see it, to hear it, to confirm that yes, this is real, yes, this actually happened, yes, you weren't imagining things all along, and with each replay something shifted, something fundamental, something that can never be put back the way it was. You stopped doubting yourself. That's the first thing that changed. All those times they made you question your memory, made you feel like maybe you were overreacting, made you wonder if you were the problem, all of it evaporated the moment you heard their voice on that recording saying exactly what you knew they said, admitting exactly what you knew they did, revealing exactly who you always knew they were. Validation is a hell of a thing, isn't it? Especially when you've been starving for it, especially when you've been called crazy so many times you started to believe it, especially when gaslighting became so normal you forgot what reality felt like. But now you remember. Now you know. Now you have proof that your instincts were right, your memories were accurate, your truth was valid all along. And that knowledge, that confirmation, it didn't just validate your past, it transformed your future. Because now you walk differently. Not arrogant, not aggressive, just certain. Certain in a way that makes people uncomfortable. Because they're used to seeing you uncertain. They're used to you second-guessing yourself. They're used to being able to make you doubt what you know to be true. But that version of you died the moment the recording started playing. What replaced it is something they're completely unprepared for. Someone who doesn't argue because they don't need to. Someone who doesn't explain because the evidence speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Someone who doesn't engage with their manipulation because manipulation only works on people who don't have proof. You have proof. And proof changes everything. It changes how you stand when they walk in the room. It changes how you respond when they try their usual tactics. It changes the entire power dynamic they spent so long constructing in their favor. Suddenly, you're not the one scrambling to prove anything. You want to be proved? Suddenly, you're not the one who needs to be believed. Suddenly, you're the one holding all the cards while they're still playing with the fake deck they've been using to cheat this whole time. Do you feel it? That shift, that quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you're no longer operating on faith or memory or gut feeling. You're operating on hard evidence, documented, time-tampered, undeniable. They can't tell you it didn't happen that way. They can't say you're remembering wrong. They can't convince others you're lying, because you have it, right there, crystal clear. Their voice, their words, their truth, the truth they tried so hard to hide. And here's what's beautiful about this moment, what's absolutely poetic about your current position. They taught you to collect evidence. They forced you into this position every time they lied to your face, then denied it later. Every time they said one thing and did another. Every time they made you feel insane for trusting your own memory. They were training you to document everything, to save everything, to keep everything just in case. They created this situation. They made you careful. They made you thorough. They made you the kind of person who keeps their phone recording just a little longer than necessary, who saves messages before they can be deleted, who doesn't trust words anymore but requires proof. They did this. They built the trap they're about to walk into. And now they're going to blame you for it, call you manipulative for recording them, act like you're the villain for catching them in their lies. Pretend like you somehow violated them by documenting their violations, but we both know the truth. You wouldn't have needed to record anything if they hadn't made lying their primary language. You wouldn't have needed proof if they hadn't spent so much time making you doubt reality. You wouldn't be in this position if they had just been honest, if they had just been decent, if they had just treated you with the basic respect of telling the truth. But they didn't.
And again, I haven't
So
said
here we
anything
are.
yet.
Here you are, holding the recording that proves everything. And here they are, walking around completely unaware that their entire carefully constructed facade is about to crumble. Because you haven't told anyone yet, have you? You haven't shared it. You haven't posted it. You haven't sent it to all the people they convinced you were wrong. Not yet. You're holding it close, keeping it safe, waiting for the right moment, or maybe just waiting to decide if there will be a right moment at all. And that patience, that restraint, that ability to hold power without immediately wielding it, that's what separates you from them. They would have used it immediately, weaponized it instantly, burned everything down without a second thought, because that's what people who operate from manipulation do. They strike fast and hard because they know their window of power is limited. But you're different. You're not operating from manipulation. You're operating from truth. And truth doesn't have a time limit. Truth doesn't expire. Truth can wait. So you're waiting, watching, observing them continue to lie.
No
continue
gear.
To perform,
I'm not even
continue to
wearing
build
any
their
gear.
false narrative higher and higher. Not realizing they're making the false so much worse. Every lie they tell now is another piece of evidence. Every false story they spread is another thing the recording will contradict. Every person they convince of their version is another person who will feel betrayed when the truth comes out. They're building your case for you, brick by brick, lie by lie, and you're just documenting it all, adding it to the file, strengthening the evidence, making it more and more impossible for them to talk their way out when the moment finally comes. If it comes, because here's the thing they really don't understand. The thing that would terrify them if they knew, you don't actually need to release the recording to win. Just having it, just knowing it exists, just carrying that
It exists in my head too.
changes everything. It
All
changes
of
how
it.
you see them. It changes how you interact with them.
Every little bit's
It
in my head,
changes
dude.
your entire relationship to their manipulation. They can't hurt you the same way anymore. They can't gaslight you. They can't make you doubt yourself. Because every time they try, you just remember the recording. You hear their voice admitting the truth. You see the evidence that proves you right. And suddenly their manipulation has no power. Suddenly their lies bounce off you like rain off glass. Suddenly you're untouchable. Not because you're using the recording as a weapon, but because you're using it as armor. As proof to yourself that you're not crazy. As evidence that your reality is valid. As confirmation that you were right all along. Now let's shift perspective for a moment. Let's crawl inside their head and see what's brewing there. What's starting to bubble up from their subconscious into their waking thoughts. What's keeping them up at 3 a.m., even though they don't know why yet. Something's off. They can feel it. You're different. You're acting strange. You're too calm, too quiet, too knowing. They can't put their finger on it, can't articulate what's changed, but something definitely has, and it's making them nervous. Because people who manipulate for a living, they develop this sixth sense for when their control is slipping, when someone sees through them, when the game is changing. And you, my friend, you are giving off every signal that the game has changed. You're not arguing anymore. That's the first thing they noticed. Used to be they could push your buttons, get you emotional, make you defend yourself, make you explain, make you prove your truth over and over until you were exhausted. But now you just smile. Now you just nod. Now you just let them talk themselves into corners while you sit back and watch. And that's unsettling to them, because manipulators need reaction. They feed on emotional responses. They require your engagement to maintain control. Your silence is starving them. Your calm is suffocating them. Your knowing smile is absolutely destroying them, even though they don't consciously understand why yet. But they will. Oh, they will. Because right now they're in the paranoia phase. The phase where they start retracing their steps, trying to remember exactly what they said and when they said it, wondering if there's any way their lies could come back to haunt them. They're starting to ask themselves questions they don't want to know the answers to. Did anyone record that? Was anyone listening? Could there be proof? And every time they ask these questions, their heart rate increases just a little. Their palms sweat just slightly. Their breath catches just momentarily. Because deep down, buried beneath all their confidence and manipulation and false narratives, they know they've been reckless. They know they've said things they shouldn't have said. They know they've admitted truths they swore they'd never admit. They just don't know if anyone captured it. They don't know if evidence exists, but they're starting to suspect, and that suspicion is eating them alive. You see it in how they watch you now, don't you? How their eyes linger just a little too long, how they study your face for tells, how they try to gauge what you know based on how you react. They're testing you, throwing out lies to see if you'll correct them, making statements to see if you'll contradict, creating situations to see if you'll reveal your hand. But you don't. You stay quiet, you stay calm, you stay powerful, and that power, that restraint, it's absolutely maddening to them. because they're used to people who crack under pressure, who spill their secrets when provoked, who can't help but show their cards. But you're not playing that game anymore. You're playing a different game entirely, one where you already won before they even realized the game had started. So they escalate. They start spreading more lies, hoping to force your hand, hoping you'll defend yourself with the evidence, hoping you'll reveal what you have so they can prepare their defense. But again, you don't bite. You let them talk. You let them dig deeper. You let them add more lies to the pile that the recording will eventually contradict. And with each passing day, their panic grows. With each interaction where you remain mysteriously calm, their paranoia intensifies. With each moment where they can't figure out what you know, their fear multiplies. Because here's what they're realizing. Slowly, painfully, terrifyingly. They might have messed up. They might have gotten too comfortable. They might have said something they shouldn't have said when they thought nobody was listening. And if that's true, if evidence exists, if proof is out there somewhere, then everything they built is at risk. Every lie they told, every manipulation they executed, every person they convinced, every relationship they faked, every reputation they crafted, all of it could collapse in an instant if that proof surfaces. So they start reaching out, casual at first. Hey, how are you? Messages after months of silence. Just wanted to check in. Calls that feel awkward and forced. We should talk. Texts that reek of desperation disguised as concern. They're fishing, trying to gauge your temperature, trying to figure out what you're thinking, trying to assess the threat level. And you know exactly what they're doing. You see through it like glass. You recognize the manipulation for what it is, an attempt to control the narrative before it spirals out of their control, a last-ditch effort to manage the situation before it becomes unmanageable. But here's what kills them. Here's what keeps them up at night. Here's what drives them absolutely insane. You're not responding the way they need you to respond. You're not falling for the fake reconciliation. You're not accepting the hollow apology. Look who's become the conversation that happens before the conversation. Look who's turned into the warning label people pass around in whispers. Look who's made it so terrifying to be in the same room with you that they literally have to prep each other like they're entering a war zone. Don't say anything that'll set them off. Don't bring up that topic. Watch your tone. Choose your words carefully. Whatever you do, don't. Just don't. They're holding emergency meetings about you, briefing sessions, strategy calls. And the funniest part is, you didn't even do anything violent. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't raise your voice. You just became someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect anymore. Someone who doesn't smile through the pain anymore. Someone who doesn't pretend anymore. And that terrifies them more than any threat ever could, because they've lost control of you. They used to be able to say anything, do anything, cross any line they wanted, and you'd just take it. You'd absorb it. You'd apologize for making them uncomfortable with your pain. But then something shifted. Something in you snapped. Not into rage, not into violence, but into clarity. And now they can't read you anymore. They can't predict you. They can't manipulate you. And that's why, before they see you, they gather in corners, in group chats, in phone calls, whispering like scared children before facing the principal. Just be careful around them. They're different now. Something's changed. They're not the same person. I don't know what happened, but don't push them. Don't test them. Don't even look at them wrong, because I've seen what happens when someone crosses that line, and it's not pretty. And the wildest part is, you're not even trying to be intimidating. You're just existing. You're just standing in your truth. You're just refusing to shrink yourself for their comfort anymore. And somehow that's the most dangerous thing you could have ever done. You know what's really happening here. They're not briefing each other because you're unstable. They're briefing each other because you're uncontrollable. Because you don't need them anymore. Because you don't chase their approval. Because you don't flinch when they try to guilt trip you. Because you don't scramble to explain yourself when they give you that look. That judgmental sideways glance that used to send you into a spiral of self-doubt. But now, when they do it, you just stare back, unbothered, unmoved, unaffected. And that stare, that silence, that complete lack of reaction, it haunts them for days. They've realized that their usual tactics don't work on you anymore. Their passive aggression just slides off you like water off glass. Their subtle digs don't land. Their attempts to gaslight you into questioning your reality just bounce back and hit them in the face. And now they're scrambling. Now they're the ones feeling unstable. Now they're the ones who can't sleep at night, wondering what you're thinking, what you're planning, because you stopped giving them access to your mind. And that's the most powerful move you could have ever made. Let's talk about what happened when your name came up in that conversation. You weren't there, but you felt it. You know how energy works. You know when you're being discussed. And in that moment, when someone said your name, 3 people started sweating. Not metaphorically, literally. You could see their faces change, their body language shift, their voices drop to a whisper. Because your name isn't just a name anymore. It's a trigger. It's a reminder of the one person in their circle who stopped playing their games, who stopped accepting their version of reality, who stopped allowing them to rewrite history and gaslight everyone into believing their lies. Your name is the uncomfortable truth they can't escape, the mirror they don't want to look into, the evidence that their whole social hierarchy is built on manipulation and fear, and you walked away from it. You stepped out of their matrix. You refused to participate in their performance, and now you're the one thing they can't control, can't predict, can't contain, and it's eating them alive. They're briefing each other because they know you see through them now. You see through the fake smiles, the performative kindness, the strategic friendships, the calculated conversations. You see the ugliness underneath the polish, the insecurity beneath the confidence, the desperation behind the success. And they know you see it. They can feel your eyes cutting through their masks like lasers, and it makes them so uncomfortable they can barely function in your presence. That's why they avoid you. That's why they change their routes when they see you coming. That's why they suddenly have somewhere else to be when you walk into a room. Not because you're mean, not because you're aggressive, but because you're aware. And awareness is the most threatening thing to people who survive on deception, who thrive in environments where everyone agrees to pretend, where everyone participates in the collective delusion. But you stopped pretending, and now you're the glitch in their system, the error message they can't debug, the virus they can't remove. Here's what they're really afraid of. They're afraid that if they say the wrong thing, if they slip up, if they show their true colors even for a second, you'll call it out, not loudly, not dramatically, just calmly, surgically. And when you do that, when you speak that uncomfortable truth out loud in that quiet, deadly tone, everything stops. Everyone freezes because they all know you're right. They all know what just happened. They all felt the mask slip. And now there's no going back. Now everyone in the room just witnessed the truth. And that's their worst nightmare. That's why they brief each other. That's why they warn each other. Don't give them ammunition. Don't give them a reason. Don't give them anything they can use against us later, because they know you remember everything. You catalog every lie, every contradiction, every moment of hypocrisy, not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but just because you're awake now, you're paying attention now, and you don't unsee things once you've seen them. They're sweating because they remember who you used to be. They remember the version of you that absorbed their abuse with a smile, that took their criticism as constructive feedback, that believed their gaslighting, that blamed yourself for their bad behavior, that twisted yourself into knots trying to be what they wanted, trying to earn their approval, trying to fit into their impossible standards, and they got comfortable with that version of you. They got used to having someone they could dump on, someone they could blame, someone who would always take the hit, always be the scapegoat, always accept responsibility for their failures. But then you woke up. Then you evolved. Then you started seeing the patterns, connecting the dots, recognizing the manipulation, and the moment you did, the moment you stopped playing your role in their dysfunction, their whole system collapsed, and now they're scrambling to rebuild it without you. But here's the thing, they can't, because you were the foundation. You were the one holding it all together, absorbing all the toxicity so they could pretend to be healthy. And now that you're gone, now that you've removed yourself, the true nature is exposed and they hate you for it. Listen closely, because this is the part they'll never admit. They don't actually think you're the problem. They know you're not. They know deep down that everything you called them out on was true. Every boundary you set was reasonable. Every time you refused to accept their disrespect was justified. But they can't admit that, because admitting that means admitting they were wrong, admitting they hurt you, admitting they took advantage of your kindness, admitting they mistook your patience for weakness, and their egos can't handle that. Their carefully constructed self-image can't survive that level of honesty, so instead they make you the villain. They brief each other on how difficult you've become, how sensitive you are, how you've changed, and yes, you have changed. You've changed from someone who accepted crumbs to someone who demands respect. You've changed from someone who stayed silent to someone who speaks truth. You've changed from someone who made excuses for them to someone who holds them accountable. And that change, that evolution, that transformation, it's the most terrifying thing they've ever witnessed, because it proves that people can wake up, people can break free, people can stop participating in toxic systems. And if you can do it, what's stopping others from doing the same? They're having these briefings, these strategy sessions, these let's all get on the same page before we deal with them conversations, and what they don't realize is that every time they do this, every time they gather to prepare themselves for your presence, they're admitting something massive. They're admitting that you have power. They're admitting that you affect them. They're admitting that you matter. They're admitting that you matter. They're admitting that you no longer someone they can dismiss, ignore, or control. And that admission, even though they'll never say it out loud, even though they'll never acknowledge it consciously, it's changing the entire dynamic, it's shifting the energy, it's rewriting the hierarchy. Because now, you're not the ones seeking their approval, they're the ones seeking your mercy. They're the ones hoping you won't expose them. They're the ones praying you'll stay quiet about what you know. They're the ones terrified of what you might say, what you might reveal, what truth you might drop that'll shatter their carefully maintained illusions. You want to know the most powerful position you can be in? It's not being loved by everyone. It's not being liked by everyone. It's not even being respected by everyone. It's being the person they have to prepare for. It's being the person they can't take lightly. It's being the person whose presence alone changes the atmosphere. whose silence speaks louder than words, whose absence is felt more than most people's presence. And that's where you are now. You didn't ask for this position, you didn't scheme for it, you didn't manipulate your way into it. You simply stopped accepting disrespect. You simply started valuing yourself. You simply began requiring others to meet you at your level instead of constantly lowering yourself to meet them at theirs. And that simple shift, that basic act of self-respect, it was so foreign to them, so unexpected, so completely outside their understanding of who you were supposed to be, that it registered as an attack, as aggression, as a threat, when really all you did was stop being a doormat. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The fact that when your name comes up, when someone mentions you, when you become the topic of conversation, there's always that pause, that moment of collective anxiety, that shift in energy where everyone gets a little tense, a little careful, a little guarded. That's always the challenge.
Oh no, I'm not attacking
You might think
anymore.
that's a bad thing. You might think that means you're the problem. But let me reframe that for you. That tension isn't about you being negative. That tension is about them knowing they can't play their usual games. That tension is about them realizing they're in the presence of someone who won't participate in their delusions. That tension is about them feeling the weight of their own authenticity when confronted with your authenticity. This tension is about them feeling the weight of their own authenticity because you're not performing anymore. You're not pretending anymore. You're not code switching to make them comfortable anymore. You're just being you, raw, real, unfiltered, unapologetic. And that realness, that authenticity, it's like sunlight to vampires. It's uncomfortable for people who've built their entire existence on fakery, on performance, on carefully curated images that don't match their reality. They're briefing each other on what not to say around you, what topics to avoid, what jokes not to make, what comments to keep to themselves. And while they frame this as walking on eggshells, what it really is, what they can't admit, is that they're finally being forced to think before they speak. They're finally being held to a standard of basic respect. They're finally facing consequences for their thoughtlessness, their cruelty disguised as humor, their passive aggression disguised as concern, their manipulation 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 disguised as concern, and they hate it. They hate having to be mindful. They hate having to consider how their words affect others. They hate having to treat you with the dignity they should have been offering all along. Because it's easier to blame you for being too sensitive than to admit they were being insensitive. It's easier to paint you as the problem than to acknowledge their behavior was problematic. It's easier to brief each other on how to handle you than to just treat you like a human being deserving of respect. Here's the part that really gets them. You're not asking for special treatment. You're not demanding they worship you. You're not requiring them to agree with everything you say. You're simply refusing to accept disrespect. And somehow that basic boundary is too much for them. That reasonable expectation is seen as unreasonable. That simple requirement for human decency is treated like you're asking them to move mountains. And that tells you everything you need to know about them. That reveals exactly who they are. Because healthy people, emotionally mature people, people with genuine integrity, they don't need briefings on how to treat someone with respect. They just do it. naturally, automatically, without thinking twice. But these people, they need strategy sessions. They need game plans. They need to coordinate their approach. And that coordination, that preparation, they need preparation. It's not about you being difficult. It's about them being incapable of authenticity, incapable of genuine respect, incapable of treating people well without ulterior motives or strategic calculations. Let's go deeper into what happens in those moments when your name triggers that response. When someone mentions you and suddenly the room gets heavy. When your presence becomes the thing they're all silently preparing for. There's a specific type of power in that, and it's not the power of intimidation. It's not the power of aggression. It's the power of truth. It's the power of boundaries. It's the power of refusing to participate in their collective dysfunction. And that power, it can't be taken from you. It can't be diminished by their gossip. It can't be destroyed by their attempts to paint you as the villain. Because you know who you are. You know your truth. You know that everything they're afraid of, everything they're briefing each other about, it's not your anger, it's not your violence, it's your clarity, your ability to see through them, your refusal to be gaslit, your commitment to reality over their preferred fantasy. And that commitment, that dedication to truth, it's unshakable. It's immovable. It's the foundation they can never crack. They're sweating because they know that in any room you're in any conversation you're part of, their usual tactics won't work. Their diversions won't land. Their attempts to change the subject will be noticed. Their efforts to gaslight will be called out, not necessarily out loud, not necessarily in front of everyone, but they'll see it in your eyes, in your silence, in your lack of reaction to their manipulation. And that knowing, that awareness, it's worse than any confrontation, it's worse than any argument, because it means you see them, truly see them. And they can't hide anymore, they can't pretend anymore, they can't perform their way out of it, because you're not buying the You stopped purchasing tickets to their circus months ago, years ago, and now you're just watching from the outside, observing, understanding, but no longer participating. And that non-participation, that withdrawal of your energy from their drama, it's devastating to them because they need participants, they need people to play the game, they need victims to gaslight, they need someone to blame, someone to scapegoat, someone to make responsible for their own failures. And you're not available for that role anymore. Here's what they'll never tell you. In those briefings, in those moments when they're warning each other about you, there's a tone, there's an undercurrent, and it's not just fear, it's not just anxiety, there's something else, something they'd never admit. There's respect, there's admiration, there's a begrudging acknowledgement that you did something they could never do. You walked away, you set boundaries, you chose yourself, you refused to keep playing a game rigged against you, and part of them, the part they bury deep down, the part they'll never let surface, that part knows you're right, knows you're strong, knows you're everything they wish they had the courage to be. But instead of letting that admiration motivate them to grow, to change, to evolve, they let it curdle into resentment, into bitterness, into this toxic need to warn others about you, to paint you as the problem, to make you the villain. Because if you're the villain, then they're the victims. If you're the bad guy, then they're justified in their treatment of you. If you're the monster, then they don't have to look at themselves, don't have to acknowledge their role, don't have to take responsibility for how they contributed to the situation. Watch what happens next. Watch how they navigate spaces where you exist. Watch how they position themselves. How they manage conversations. How they try to control narratives. Because every single move they make is calculated around you now, around your potential presence, around what you might hear, what you might see, what you might know. And that's the most powerful position to occupy.
And I've done it
Not because you're
alone.
trying to intimidate them, not because you're seeking revenge, not because you want them to suffer, but simply because you exist in truth. You operate from authenticity. You refuse to participate in delusion. And that refusal, that commitment to reality, it forces everyone around you to either step up or step back. Either match your energy or remove themselves. Either be real or be gone. And most of them, most of these people who need briefings before seeing you, they can't match that energy. They can't operate at that level. They can't survive in an environment where truth is valued over comfort, where authenticity is required over performance, where people are held accountable for their actions, rather than coddled in their dysfunction. They're briefing each other right now, in this moment. Somewhere, someone is saying your name, and someone else is tensing up, someone else is warning them. Be careful, watch what you say, don't push them, they're not the same anymore. And they're right, you're not the same. You're better, you're stronger, you're clearer, you're more aligned with your truth.
Wow, 47 minutes. It's over. Yeah, I'm reaching out now. People are like pretending they don't even know who I am. Well, I know who you are, so why don't you know who I am? I know the name attached to the face that's not attached to the account anymore, so. And you don't even like to put your face in your shit, right? Noi, noi. No, I was really worried, man. I've never played this level. I haven't even played this game in like a few years. Well, I guess I'll get roll duration. First try. First try. And we made it right back to the well. Nice. First try. Never even played the Norseman. There's a portal. Alright, I'm going to upload this now. Oh, there is an upload sitting. Yeah, I forgot. I already uploaded shit. I already have shit uploaded. Oh yeah. I have it in multiple things too. What did I get here? Dissonant Survivor, Bladestorm 1, Novice Norseman, Literate 1. Void Caller, Cold Rage, Dissonant Survivor 2, Dissonance Dominator, Trained Norseman, The Village, Permafrost 1, Twisted Knight, Dissonant Survivor 3, Arcane Rift Mastery 1, Bladestorm 2, Dissonance Dominator, something, Radiant Aura Master, Lord of Discord. And then next main quest is Long Living. Oh, there's quests I'm supposed to follow? I'll go do that after. That was fucking awesome. What a good way to return to this game. This game is so fun. It's, ooh, what's this? Landsnecht? Specializes in projectile weapons and abilities, has specialized trait paths for her unique weapon combination. Each level up +2 base damage. Arquebus. Piercing, crit bonus defense. Arquebus. Oh, cool. It's a gun and grenades too. Cool. All right, well, I'll be back later. I got 15 grand from that. Holy shit. All right, well, see ya. Have a good one. Wouldn't want to be ya.